All right, Michael, if we could get a roll call.
Alderman Bob Bauman.
Here.
Mr. Joel Brennan.
Here. How are you? Never met you before. Okay.
Grady Crosby. Senator Alberta Darling. Mr. Mark Flaherty.
Present.
Representative Kaylin Haywood. Alderman Cavalier Johnson. Senator Latanya Johnson.
Here.
Mr. James Cantor.
Here.
Mr. Scott Mansky.
Here.
Mr. Greg Marcus. Mayor Dennis McBride. Mayor McBride.
We can see you. Can you hear us, Mayor McBride?
Ms. Joanne Sabir. Representative Joe Sanfilippo. Ms. Aicha Sawa.
Here.
Mr. Omar Sheikh.
Here.
Alderwoman Jocasta Zamaripa.
Here.
Mr. Greg Marcus. Mr. Greg Marcus.
Greg, you're on mute.
Here, sorry, thanks.
Mayor Dennis McBride.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you. All right, the first order of business is any discussion and the approval of the meeting minutes from our last board meeting on 8/20/2021. Any discussion? All right, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Do we have a second for approval? All right. Thank you.
Don't look
All
at
right.
me, Cantor. I couldn't do
I know you can only do so much, Secretary Brennan. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All in, right, I think that was an aye for the previous. All right, board meeting minutes are approved from August. Next order of business, Mr. Steve Marsh with our financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everyone. Before we get into the primary purpose of today's financial update, just a couple of quick comments. Number one, our forecast projections for 2021 remain unchanged from what we presented to the full board at the August meeting. Thus, we did not include the standard financial packet for today's discussion. If anyone would like another copy of the August statements, please reach out to me directly. Number two, at the October board meeting, we will be presenting and seeking the board's adoption of the 2022 proposed budget, as well as providing an updated forecast for 2021. And we hope that all board members can participate in that meeting next month. And number three, as requested at the August Finance and Personnel Committee meeting, we've included in your board packet today, specifically pages 6, 7, and 8, three financial exhibits that provide summary information pertaining to expansion project funds. Page 6 summarizes the total project budget and the year-to-date cash draws against each budget category. Page 7 summarizes the estimated cash flow drawdown schedule for the construction account, which is the account that funds all project expenses. And page 8 provides a snapshot of investment earnings expected to accrue by year-end from the construction account, of which will total approximately $276K by December, which is about 92% of our project goal and represents very good progress thus far. Certainly take some time to review these pages, and if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or Marty. These exhibits really are informational for the board at this time, and management has no concerns regarding project budget or cash flow. So to the business at hand, we discussed at last month's committee and board meetings the potential opportunity due to favorable market conditions to refinance some existing district debt for the purpose of reducing our annual debt service payments. To be clear, this transaction is wholly unrelated to the expansion project and is rather an opportunity to save money for the district. After further discussions with our finance team since our last board meeting, management has concluded that executing such a refinancing transaction is in the best interest of the district and that we should begin taking the appropriate next steps towards achieving that goal. One of those steps, similar to the debt transaction executed last June, is to present an authorizing resolution to the full board for adoption, which we are here to do today. At today's meeting, to review the potential transaction, as well as the authorizing resolution, are John Behan from R.W. Baird, Rebecca Speckhard from Quarles and Brady, and Dave Erdman, who's on the phone today, Capital Finance Director for the state of Wisconsin and trusted advisor to the district. This same group was assembled last week and presented to the Finance Committee the materials that are in your packet today, of which management has received no objection. As I said, management recommends we execute this transaction, and after the finance team concludes their presentation today, including answering any questions from the board, we will request action from the board to adopt the authorizing resolution. John, with that set up, I turn it over to you.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Steve, for laying it out. I'll just walk through a brief presentation, which I believe you have in your packets. As Steve mentioned, this is a discussion about potentially refunding debt which you have outstanding. So we're not issuing new debt. We're going to be taking existing debt and replacing it with debt that is at a lower interest cost. The debt that we're looking at doing is a 2013 issue. It's a junior dedicated tax revenue refunding bond, and it was originally issued back in 2001. It funded improvements to the Miller High Life Theater. The plan of financing is to conduct an advance refunding which would be issued as taxable debt and which would produce savings after all costs somewhere in the $200,000 to $250,000 range annually. The issue size will be determined at the time that we actually do the financing, but for purposes of authorizations, which Rebecca Speckert will cover in the resolution, we have a not-to-exceed number, and the not-to-exceed number is at $29 million. We don't expect it to be at that level, but it's because it's a parameter resolution that we're working within the authorization provided. The debt itself will be structured very similar to the existing debt. It'll have a final maturity in 2032. We're not extending the debt. We're just taking, in essence, the debt that's there and putting a new one in its place and lowering the interest cost. The security is that it's on a junior lien basis, so it uses the same tax revenues that supports the other debt of the district, but it's junior to the senior bonds. It is not supported in any way by a moral obligation of the state of Wisconsin. We'll be approaching Moody's Investor Service to apply for a bond rating. I don't anticipate that we'll use bond insurance, but that's a math question. Is it financially beneficial to do it? And we'll move towards an issue using Morgan Stanley as the book-running senior manager, along with syndicate members to be selected. As Steve mentioned, similar to the other issues, we're going to be looking at a parameter resolution. Now, as far as interest rates at this time, they continue to be extremely low levels. This debt will be issued as taxable debt. This is not unsimilar to what's been done at the state of Wisconsin for a number of their issues, that you're able to issue taxable debt, refund existing tax-exempt debt, and still experience significant savings. So interest rates still continue to be low. As to the timing, the working group will be working during the months of September and October on preparing the various bond documents and offering documents, approaching the rating agencies, and then proceeding to market. If all follows according to plan, the market holds, I could see us conducting an issue sometime mid to late October with a closing in early November. Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for John?
John, what's the saving?
It's around $200,000 to $250,000 per year. So it's significant savings. once you've done this, you won't be able to do another refunding for a while, so you want to make sure it's, beneficial. As a percent of the issue size you're refunding, it's anywhere from 3 to 5%, could be even in excess of that.
Any other questions or comments for John? Great.
I have one quick question.
Yep.
Sorry, I have one quick question.
Sure, Greg.
Do covenants change at all? Are covenants better or worse? You know, that's kind of stuff, the detail that I would never really truly understand, but maybe you could give us shed some light on, or maybe they're just the same.
No, a good question. There are no changes to the covenants. Nothing changes. It's really taking what's in place and just replacing it with lower interest rates.
Are there any covenants we'd ever want to change?
Well, with the other issues that are still outstanding, and that will go out longer, have a longer maturity than the debt we're refunding, we're bound by the existing covenants that are in place on all the other debt issues that are still in place. I mean, in essence, this debt issue is going to be a 10-year issue, and our other debt issues that are outstanding go beyond that, and those covenants do dictate.
Thank you.
Will the funds be held in trust until the call date for the 2013 A's?
Exactly. There's an escrow agent that's utilized. There will be an escrow verification report that confirms the math and that the sizing of the escrow is done properly, and the reinvestments of the bond proceeds will be sufficient to provide for the interest payments until the call date and to call the bonds at that time.
And when is the call date again?
It's December 15th of 2023.
And that's figured into the calculation of the savings?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
This is HR. One quick question. Can you remind me what the bond rating is for the district? Like the most recent one? Or Steve, maybe?
I'd be happy to. The bond rating are split based on the security, and the bonds we're talking about, which are the junior lien bonds, these are rated Baa1 with a negative outlook by Moody's Investor Service.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rebecca Speckard with Quarles and Brady, and we're bond counsel to the district. And I'm here this morning just to provide a brief summary of the authorizing resolution, which starts at page 14 of your packet. So as John indicated, the authorizing resolution is for the issuance of junior dedicated tax revenue refunding bonds in an original principal amount not to exceed $29 million. It is a not-to-exceed amount. The resolution establishes a parameter that is the maximum parameter. Just to very high level step through the summary, Article 1 of the resolution provides definitions of certain capitalized terms that are used throughout the resolution. Article 2 really has a lot of the meat of the provisions, providing authorization for the district to issue up to $29 million in bonds to refund the Series 2013A bonds and to finance customary costs and reserves related to the issuance. It outlines the conditions, including a requirement that there must be debt service savings in each year to proceed with the financing, and other terms that the bonds have to meet when they're issued, and delegates the final determination of those terms and conditions to the chairperson and/or president/CEO pursuant to an award certificate that they will execute at the time of pricing. Article 3 provides the redemption features for the new bond issue that would allow those bonds to be called prior to maturity, and delegates the final approval of those terms to the chairperson and/or president/CEO. Article 4 establishes the customary funds and accounts that are required by the general resolution and that are going to be utilized in connection with the issuance of the bonds. It sets forth how the proceeds are going to be deposited and dispersed, including into the escrow agreement that John was referencing. In addition, that Article 4 includes statutorily required findings regarding the moral obligation reserve fund bonds that the district does have outstanding, and restates that there is no moral obligation pledge of the state applicable to these bonds. Article 5 provides authority for the chairperson and president CEO to determine and execute that award certificate I was referencing that is going to set forth the final terms and provisions at the pricing of the bonds. And Article 6 carries forward certain prior amendments that have been put in place with, to the general resolution back in 2016 and 2020, and obtains these bondholders' consent to those amendments. And then Article 7 just has certain miscellaneous provisions relating to the bonds. Exhibit A has the form of the bonds that will be used when the bonds are actually issued. That's a very high-level summary. I'm happy to entertain any questions that anyone may have at this point.
Are there any questions for Rebecca? Great, thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Rebecca. Yeah, I mean, that is our presentation today, Mr. Chairman. At this time, we'd ask for a vote on the authorizing resolution.
Great, so I think with the, as a authorizing resolution that was just presented by John and Rebecca, I think I would entertain a motion to move forward on a vote or approval.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Motion carries. Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation too, Steve?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. it
Okay,
does.
thank you. Just making sure. Marty, CEO report.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, board members. Thank you for being here today. First, a little housekeeping. I would mention last month that we had made a hire for a new position. We've brought on board a gentleman with decades of experience in sponsorship, sales, corporate partnership generation, and I'd like to introduce him to you today. His name's Steve Harms. He joined us on August 23rd as our Vice President of Corporate Partnerships. Steve, if you could just stand up and acknowledge the group. One little tidbit of information, any of you who play golf or need someone as a ringer for your foursome, Steve is a very strong 6 handicap and is available for sponsorship opportunities with the district to join your foursome to help you if you need that assistance. Welcome, Steve. This past Monday, we issued a memo to all full and part-time WCD staff members informing them that as of Monday, November 1st, we are requiring all employees to be fully vaccinated for COVID-19. Anyone who has not provided proof of vaccination to our Human Resources Department by 5 p.m. Friday, October 29th, will have voluntarily resigned from their position with the district. We have made the same requirement to our 3 largest third-party contractors here at the Wisconsin Center. That's Levy Restaurants, CTI Technical Services, and Permar Security for anyone that they have working in any of the district properties. Thus far, in connection with the Delta variant, 2 events in the Miller High Life Theater that were presented for young children, those under the age of 12, have been postponed until sometime in 2022. Specifically, Peppa Pig was scheduled for October 3rd, and Disney Princesses in Concert was scheduled for December 10th. We've been told by both show promoters that they will be rescheduled for next year, but with the concern of the Delta variant, those 2 events have been postponed. We will be requiring proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test within the past 72 hours for the Judas Priest concert that's being held at the Miller High Life Theater this Wednesday. We will be assessing our protocols for future shows based on information from the Health Department and the CDC. Full schedule of games for UWM was announced last week, which is terrific. We've got a full slate of men's basketball games as well as a full hockey season for the 21-22 season. We are continuing our discussions with the Wave as recently as earlier this week and hope to have them playing their 12 home games in our building for the 21-22 season. And very anxious and hopeful to get that resolved within the next week or two at most. As of this morning, we have just crossed the threshold of 134,000 tickets for Beyond Van Gogh, and as I've mentioned before, that exhibit was extended till the end of October. We have set very our own aggressive goals for tickets sold. We're hoping to get to 175. I think we're going to be at 165, but still a very strong performance from a property that was unknown to us prior to February of this year. We received notice, I think it was yesterday, that the grant application from the state for public tourism capital projects should be issued shortly, and we are anxiously awaiting that issuance so we can apply for it and have the DOA and the state hopefully provide us with some funding for some projects to the existing convention center. To talk now, the last thing I have to speak about is the Visit Milwaukee contract. We had a very, I think, spirited and candid discussion last month, and based upon the information that was presented, albeit a fair amount of information presented for the first time, we were asked to provide the board with a number of documents in advance of today's meeting, which you all should have received this past Friday. We distributed the existing agreement, which expires December 31st of this year, the proposed agreement, and a summary document comparing the two agreements. Subject to further discussion, I'm seeking the board's approval to finalize the agreement under terms no less beneficial to the district than those presented in the draft agreement. I have been engaged in contract discussions with Peggy Williams-Smith for the past several months, and will be seeking approval to enter into a 5-year agreement that would also provide for a 2-year option. The next 5 years are critical to exploiting the expansion. We need a marketing and sales arm that is up and running, knowledgeable, and very knowledgeable of the industry and the meetings and conventions business. Large meetings and conventions are seeking proposals for their events through 2026, and some even beyond 2026. Unlike any prior agreement over the past 20 years, the agreement we have developed holds Visit accountable to the WCD, ensures we can be an active participant in their business, commits to a term that provides for continuity of the sales and marketing of the convention center during an important growth period, and establishes performance measurements that, if not achieved, allows the district to terminate the agreement and pursue other options. The past 10 months, we have worked closer with Visit Milwaukee than anyone can remember the two organizations doing so, and we have developed trust and respect for their senior leadership team. The management team of the district and I strongly support the draft agreement we are seeking the board's approval to finalize. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my remarks. I open the floor to any questions or comments, and then subject to the outcome, would seek a motion to move forward, to allow us to move forward with the agreement.
Great. Thank you, and thanks for sending the information requested last month at the board meeting to everyone for review. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to see that. I would ask for any questions of Marty or the team. Okay.
I have one question.
Yes.
It relates to the visit agreement.
Yes.
And that, you know, and I don't, what, you know, it's a weird thing, right? So let me preface every remark with, you know, the success of the district, certainly maybe we may be, you know, we may be more tied to it than anybody. So that is certainly something I want to keep in mind. You know, but visits, its area of that it's responsible for, its purview is the district, but it's also more than that. You know, it's leisure bookings, it's being the marketing arm for Milwaukee. And, you know, we're obviously very concerned with the district. And yet we are their funding source for most of their money. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's a significantly high percentage. And what is our responsibility? Because if you read this, it's like, you know, I think there's like one bullet point, market, culture, and arts, you know, and then there's 17 bullet points that say market the district. Since we're the complete funding source for them, what is our responsibility to make sure that their scope is really also, you know, because is beyond just the district, that we do need to take care of, you know, leisure and you know, other kind of travel, because that's hugely important, as I think we talked about last time. You know, we've punched above our weight as a community in leisure business for many years. If you look at square footage of convention space to hotel rooms, of office space to hotel rooms, you know, Milwaukee is not currently at the top of those lists, and yet our RevPAR, you know, would seem to indicate that we're doing better proportionally. And so you got to say, well, okay, Visit's been responsible for some of that. So how do we fit into that?
Greg, that's a point of discussion that Peggy and I spent a lot of time going over. At one point in our discussion, probably early on, I was seeking for a specific percentage of the total spend to be tied to the district, which I ultimately am responsible for. And Peggy, to her credit, understood my position, but was very direct in the need to make sure that ample resources were directed to leisure. And we discussed that the hotel tax, you know, depends a lot upon leisure travel. And part of the budgeting process that we would now have an active role in will be determined by Visit. How much of the marketing budget is directed towards leisure, how much to convention center specific business. And I'm very comfortable that the focus of Visit, because they are an outside entity, will represent the needs of the leisure business proportionately for the restaurant, hotel, and rental car markets.
Yeah, I think there's the hotel tax in your Schedule 2.1, the overall hotel tax they're responsible for, correct? Isn't that what that said? I think so, yeah. Right? There's a standard in there, isn't that correct?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
There's a standard in there for hotel tax in total, not just district, right? Isn't that one of the standards?
Correct. There's a total amount that they're being looked to generate in the year for the year, and then also future bookings going out 5 years.
Okay, so that does encompass that then, so that's a good thing. I did have one other question, and that is, so hypothetically, you know, in this agreement, you could terminate the agreement with Visit. Well, then, what is our responsibility then to fund some sort of marketing arm for the community? I mean, what happens?
There is a statutory obligation that requires the district to use the hotel tax money to promote tourism. It doesn't require us to fund Visit for that function, but it does. It's very clear that those monies, if we terminated the agreement, could not be used by the district to pay debt service, to pay operating expenses. They're clearly identified for tourism purposes.
So we'd have to come up with some other organization.
Correct. Now, what we could do, if that scenario were to occur, which none of us want it to, would be to create a division, or I don't know what the appropriate legal term would be, and in essence, self-op. That would be another option, but not one we certainly chose to pursue at this time.
But frankly, wouldn't it be that in terms of substance over form, you could call it that, but you'd have to hire all the same kind of people to do the same kind of things.
Yeah, this is not something that could be transferred to existing district staff and have a savings of the operating expenses.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you very much.
So agreement is up
December 31st.
December. When's the next board meeting?
Be October. the October, I think it's
So
October 22nd.
why are we voting on it today?
Because Peggy and I have not finalized, the document. It is not signed. To my knowledge, she has not shared it with her board, and that would require a process to have it approved and signed off on by the visit organization.
Okay. I'm just, well,
Try-
still
trying
give you
to-
enough time if we talked. I think enough people are chewing over this thing. I've expressed my opinion on the term, and I think a lot of people don't agree with it, but that's what democracy is about. So, but I guess what I'd like to ask is maybe we push this off to the next meeting, because we got these documents. I didn't have a chance to go through this when I got it last week, and I just would like some more time. I'm one of 22 or whatever, so.
Yeah, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I'd certainly concur in that request. I mean, I have extensive comments to provide. I will not support this agreement today. I will state my reasons on the record and for the benefit of the media who are present here today. I have been anticipating and hoping for over a year, because this agreement actually expired December 31, 2020, but we extended it a year. Basically, I thought for the purpose of undertaking a review of the relationship between Visit and the district, the functions that Visit performs, whether we're getting value for the $7 million worth of taxpayer money which they consume, whether we would be more efficient and effective bringing the function in-house, both in terms of saving money and in terms of increasing effectiveness. All open questions that I don't purport to have the answer to. It might very well be true that after a process of evaluation, we end up right where we're starting, and that is that the Visit model and the Visit management is precisely what we should have going forward. That could be the answer we end up with, but I see no process here whatsoever. Zero process. No one is raising any questions about, and we're just going to go forward, another 5-year deal, $7 million a year plus. I noticed these bonus formulas in here. I did go over this document, and I mean, I noticed these revenue thresholds for the city hotel tax. I mean, I wonder who set those and how they were set, because they're very low. I mean, they're lower than historic performance. So we're almost building in a guaranteed bonus if they just get back to where they were in 2019. Right, Steve? Because 2019, your numbers, I went back in the old reports, I mean, your numbers showed 15 million plus or minus in city hotel tax, which is the top threshold. So there's really no incentive for them to do anything other than to get back to where we were 2 years ago. So I just wonder who set these numbers and who set these thresholds, because these thresholds almost guarantee that the bonuses will be paid. Just through the normal course of business, with nobody doing anything
I would
in
just,
particular.
thank you, Bob. I would ask if this is a motion or to table at this
Motion
point?
table.
Okay.
Before you, Alberta had a question that she wanted to raise. Okay.
Right, so then we'll have to vote on. You have to vote on the motion to table, so I would entertain a motion to take. You have your motion. We have the motion. Do we have a second? Mark seconded. Thank you.
Second.
Yep. Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No? I mean, voting no?
Opposed.
Aye. So all opposed say aye.
Can we do,
Aye.
can we do a roll call? Yeah, well, somebody has to, I can't.
You know, I have a point of order on this issue relative, and maybe our attorneys could address this. You know, the last meeting I was going through the Visit brochure, annual report that Mark was very generous to provide me. And I noticed that there are perhaps 5 members of the Visit Board who are also members of the Wisconsin Center District Board. And these are separate legal entities. Boards usually have fiduciary duties to their principal, to the entities on whose board they serve. And I wonder to our attorneys, is there not an inherent conflict of interest for Wisconsin Center District Board members who are also Visit Board members to even be voting on this question?
There is not,
Why?
Mr. Baumann. At the moment, we have a pending motion to table. We have to
Well,
finish.
I'm raising a point of order on the voting on that motion.
And who
My
should be
understanding
voting?
of the rules of order, that's not appropriate at the moment.
Okay.
So we'll have a roll call vote. Michael?
Alderman Bob Bauman,
On the motion to table, aye.
Motion to table, yes.
Mr. Joel Brennan,
No.
Senator Alberta Darling, Mr. Mark Flaherty,
Aye.
Representative Kalen Haywood,
No.
Senator Latanya Johnson,
No.
Mr. James Cantor,
No.
Mr. Scott Mansky,
Aye.
Mr. Greg Marcus,
No.
Mayor Dennis McBride.
Aye.
What was,
What was your vote? Sorry, Mayor McBride?
Aye.
Ms. Joanne Sabir, Ms.
Joanne,
Jo-
your mic is muted, Joanne.
Joanne, Ms. Aicha Sawa,
Aye.
Mr. Omar Sheikh,
No.
Alderwoman Jocasta Zamaripa,
Aye.
we need Joanne's vote.
Joanne, are you there?
Ms. Joanne Sabir,
Ms. Sabir, are you available?
Ms. Joanne Sabir,
What are the,
we have 7 ayes and 6 noes.
so then the motion passes. All right, the matter is tabled. The Visit Milwaukee contract discussion is tabled then for now.
Can I make one request of information for the
Hold
next?
hold on, Mark, Greg, please hold on one second. Senator Darling has a question.
We can't hear Senator Darling. She'll need to put on her speaker.
Hold on.
Give her Steve's microphone.
We'll try again. Hey, that's
Thank you.
working now.
All right.
Thank you. I just want to make a point that my support of the motion is not over disagreement with the content of the proposal, but when there's several people who want to take more time to look at a very important part of our mission, I think we should give the time to that. So that's why I supported it, not that I'm dissatisfied with it.
Great, thank you, Senator Darling.
And
Greg?
after that, I'd like to make a comment that isn't relevant.
Okay, thank you. Greg?
Well, just as you prepare materials, or I know Alderman Bauman's asked for some stuff, I think it'd be helpful to understand what we spend on marketing compared to peer cities. I think that'd be an important number for us all to understand as we think about efficiency and how we're doing. If that could be put together, I'd appreciate it.
I'll get with Visit and prepare that, and I would ask that if anyone has questions about either the process or the terms that are identified in the contract that have not been brought up at today's meeting, I'd certainly be interested in getting them and then responding to those questions to the full group, so everyone can have the same information as we contemplate this before the next board meeting.
Great, Senator Darling?
Yeah, my question or comment relates to marketing, so thank you for bringing that up. Our position right now in terms of the nation is very strong. I mean, if you think of the Bucks, the Brewers, and our cultural assets, this is a really good time for us to team with the Department of Tourism and to invest more effort into tourism. Our reputation around the country and the world has been intensified through sports, and also golf, I should add. So I think it's time for somebody to really look at this and promote a better image of our state, and more money to do that, because if we look at how much we invest in tourism, it's much lower than most other states. Let's compare Michigan, Illinois. Obviously, they're larger states, but if you look at our assets, they're greater than many states around the country, and we ought to monopolize on our position today and bring that proposal to the governor and the Department of Tourism and have a joint effort at promoting Wisconsin and putting more money in it. I think that we only invest a small amount of money and we get an 18-to-1 return. So that's very strong. So I'd really like us to look at that.
And what I'd like to add is, while I don't know if Steve answered the question, but to your question, Mr. Baumann, the numbers that were set for the bonuses were tied to 3 different reports that I outlined in my my notes last month. First and foremost, we used the HVS study that looked at the recovery of the market based upon COVID. So these were not numbers that Visit nor we randomly identified, number one. Number two, the idea that bonuses can be paid to Visit are something that we want to pay. I want to pay big bonuses to Visit Milwaukee because that money will be used to market, bonus money will be used to market the destination, not specifically going into the personal accounts of the people on staff. The bonus formula is dramatically different than what had been in place in years past. It really wasn't tied so much to quantifiable performance. But it is money that's gone to the Visit in the past, which they've used to market the destination. So while it's identified as a bonus and it only gets paid if those thresholds are achieved, they budget for that so that we can promote and market the destination.
Okay, and if I may follow on
Mr. Chair.
Greg Marcus's
Yes.
point about analysis of peer cities. I want a real analysis, not just top-line numbers, because that's what I know what we're going to get if we don't drill deeper. We need an apples-to-apples comparison, not just, oh, Charlotte spends 5 times as much on convention marketing. Well, maybe their facility is 10 times as big. We need a true drill down of peer cities, not just top-line numbers, and that's what I was hoping for, a process to do a full-scale investigation and drill down of how we're doing. I find comparing us to peer cities, as long as we're actually doing a full-scale comparison and not just cherry-picking numbers which are most favorable to Visit, and therefore supporting the end result of what they're looking for. That's why I wanted a process in the first place. And frankly, the call for a process, the desire to get a process, has been met with a complete stonewall. Nobody's interested in actually doing homework, drilling down, doing an investigation to determine if we are indeed spending $7 million, taxpayer dollars. And all the electeds on this board, I would think, should be very concerned about that we're getting the most value for this taxpayer money, that we are just shoveling over to a private entity, and that everyone is comfortable that that's happening based on data that has been collected and analyzed, versus just, here's the contract, up or down.
Mr. Scheck?
Mr. Chairman, I've had my hand raised.
Sorry, Mayor McBride, sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to add to what Senator Darling said, which is that my vote shouldn't be taken as an indication of what my final vote will be. I sit on the Visit board, I sit on this board, I'm the mayor of Wauwatosa. I'm concerned about the success of both boards, obviously of my own city and of course the entire region. But as she pointed out, there are enough people who are asking questions, want a little bit more time to mull this over. I thought it only fair that we take a little bit more time because we have it to make sure that everyone's concerns are addressed and satisfied. So I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think we also owe it to the party we're in negotiation with Visit to give them the same amount of time. So I would ask that next time we all do our homework and are prepared for what is to take place at the next meeting, because we cannot continue to push this off. I know we have until December 31st, but we also owe the party that we're negotiating with, Visit, to have time to review the contract as well. So, Marty?
No, the only other thing I wanted to add is, Bob, there may not have been a thorough analysis done by a third party or members of the board, but I will tell you that the district management was very thoughtful starting in November of 2020 when the contract was extended for a year. We took it upon ourselves to do our own assessment of options and chose, based upon the next several months of activities with Visit, as I said, based upon the confidence we have in them, the fact that the past year and a half has really been put a pin in your business plan, because it's not fair to assess Visit's performance in a COVID situation as it relates to booking hotel rooms. I think outside of their scope of booking hotel rooms, they did a tremendous job in representing the market, both internally and externally, as far as how we were handling the COVID situation. We internally looked at the option of self-op, and given the workload we currently have on our plate, felt that the best solution was to get behind Visit and negotiate a contract that put in controls that heretofore have not been in place, that would give us hands-on direct involvement in their process, be able to ascertain specific information that you asked me for the other day that I don't have because I'm not bound to get it, although in the new contract I would be. The fact that the terms of the existing agreement provide for a termination component is all new. So I do acknowledge that we did not involve a third party to give us an assessment of other options, but I do take exception that there wasn't time and effort put into looking at options, and that the contract that we negotiated reflects our belief that this is a very viable option for the success of the district.
All right. Are there any other statements or questions? Thank you.
That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, next order of business is the board leadership positions. First of all, just to let everyone know that the three appointments, Grady Crosby, Joanne Sabir, and myself have been reappointed for the next 3 years, overall just as board seats. Second, everyone is aware our bylaws provide for annual election of officers in the fourth quarter of each year. The four positions are currently the chair, the vice chair, the secretary, and the treasurer. Currently, those positions are held by myself, Grady Crosby, Mark Flaherty, and Greg Marcus. Board members wishing to be considered for an officer position should submit their names to Marty or me prior to the next governance committee meeting, which is October 14th of 2021. Candidates for these positions will be voted on at the October meeting. Are there any questions, comments, concerns on that? Great. Thank you. So make sure we all are there. We have a lot to cover at the next board meeting. Future board meeting dates, I think, for 2021 are all on the calendar. Those have not been changed. 2022, I know we have some alterations, and I think people have gotten back to Michael to see if there's any dates that won't work for people, but we're going to try to cut down on the sheer number of them. But we still have, I think, 9. Is it 9 or 8 on the calendar for 2027, right, for the 2022? With that said, are there any other discussion items that we should bring up at this point or for future meeting board dates? Yes, Senator Darling. We'll get you a microphone that works over here.
I'd just like to say I think the district is really doing well, and I think the management has been doing a good job. I think the budgeting has been very transparent, and I appreciate our position. I think we could do even better, but I don't want to end on a negative tone. I really applaud you and thank you for all you do, and I think we can even do better. So that's what I wanted to say.
Great. Thank you, Senator Darling.
I second that motion.
Go ahead, Greg.
I second that motion.
Thank you. I would agree. There's been a lot going on in the last couple of years, and I think we've had a lot of good-spirited discussions with open, transparent discussions, which is what we've wanted on this board for some time, and I appreciate that to the team that's been doing that. We've made a heck of a lot of progress in what has been the face of a lot of headwinds. So appreciate everybody's involvement and feedback on that. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, I didn't think anyone wanted to leave. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of adjourning, say aye. 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 Any opposed? Great. Have a wonderful weekend.